Hi, I'm Steve Pond from TheWrap here at our virtual Sundance Film Festival studio with the director of Second Chance, Ramin Bahrani. Welcome and congratulations on a fascinating, strange film.
Yes, thank you. Thanks. Good to
Now,
be here.
I know you've obviously made a lot of narrative features. I think your documentary work has mostly been either short form or TV, right?
Yeah, I did two short documentaries, and this is the first feature doc. Yes.
Right. Had you been looking to do a feature doc, or did this just the story came up and you wanted to do it?
No, I'd been interested to make a feature doc and even short still for a while. Most of my feature fiction films came out of a lot of research. So I always just thought if I had been carrying a camera when I was making Chop Shop or 99 Homes or any of the films, that there could have been a documentary made also. And in this case, I was editing The White Tiger in 2020 during the lockdown, and Johnny and Daniel from the Vespucci group contacted me, producers of the film, and they presented me with the subject of Richard Davis and Second Chance. And they wanted to know if I wanted to make a fiction film. They were planning on making a documentary. And the more they told me about it, the more I started to see the archival footage that they were showing me via Zoom. By the end of the call, I said, I'm interested in the doc, not the fiction film right now. And they were surprised but excited. And I sent them my short docs, and they sent me more footage and documentation that I could review and research. And after a couple of weeks, we agreed to make the film together as a documentary.
Right. We should for the listeners who haven't seen this, we should mention Richard Davis he was a pizza parlor owner who went bankrupt and then invented the bulletproof vest, which is sort of
in Michigan in the late 60s. And yeah, to prove that he invented the thing basically in his basement. And to prove that it worked, he shot himself point blank, ultimately almost 200 times over his career. But he was extremely brave. He was very inventive. It's a true kind of rags to riches story, someone creating something in their basement and, risking his own life to prove that it works, and ultimately saving over 1,000 people with his invention. And but as you said, the story takes a lot of strange twists and turns.
Yeah, I mean, for me, one of the fascinating things about it is that he's a fascinating character just based on that first sentence. But we're presented with information early in the film that we begin to doubt later in the film, and in certain ways he's kind of the classic unreliable narrator. So as the director, do you have to plot out, when to put the reveals, when to start casting doubt on what we've been hearing him say, all of that?
Yeah, for sure. Going into the movie, we assumed there would be a bit of an unreliable narrator, but going into a doc, it's not like a fiction film that I'm used to. You don't know what you're going to encounter. And so some of the things that we heard in the interviews were new to all of us involved in the film, and we didn't expect. And we uncovered a lot of interesting characters who told us other things that we didn't know about. So in the edit room, we worked pretty hard with Aaron Wickenden is a really great doc editor who works a lot with Morgan Nelville to figure out when we would reveal certain aspects of the story and how we would set things up, how we would hint that there might be something coming. And that took a lot of just trial and error. And then at some point, I asked a good friend of mine, Joshua Oppenheimer, to take a look at the film, an early cut. And that was extremely helpful. We had maybe a 3-hour Zoom together about what he loved in the film, which was so helpful to hear. And then ideas he had about how it could be restructured, in certain ways. The film had already been broken into chapters at that point, but that conversation with Joshua was extremely helpful. And, I admire his films, Active Killing and Look of Silence, and we had just become friends over the years. So that was really, really helpful.
Mm-hmm. Right. I mean, did you find the process of making a doc feature significantly different than the shorts that you had done?
In a way, yeah. The editing took much longer than I had imagined. The shorts were edited pretty quickly because they were just more contained, the subject matter. And here, the story was going over several decades. there's so many bizarre stories in Richard's life that we had to figure out structurally how to capture them in the course of one film. And then there were, as I said, there's so many interesting characters. Richard himself, he's not just an inventor, he's a salesman. He's a showman, he is a movie maker. He directed 8 hours of films, which became cult classics among police across the country. And he doesn't always reveal everything, not just the facts of what happened, which he perceives them in a different way, right? But also he wasn't always fully willing or able to go into certain emotional areas. So really the side characters became excellent foils to Richard. His second wife, Kathleen, was so profoundly eloquent, or Tim Pazensky, a teenager that had a very, very bizarre and almost deadly encounter with Richard decades prior, was also so eloquent. And ultimately, Aaron Westrick, this police officer who works for Richard, ultimately becoming a whistleblower. A lot of these characters were foils to Richard, to his philosophies, and were some type of an antidote to some world of delusion that had been created and mythologized by Richard and his filmmaking.
Mm-hmm. Right. So did you start out interviewing him and then move to other people?
Yeah, some of the first interviews were with Richard and his son, Matt. They were extremely supportive and helpful in making the film. I have to say, I don't agree with many of Richard's philosophies, but I liked him. I liked him as a person. I enjoyed seeing him. He was always very generous with the crew. He was very generous with his employees, at least many of them, not all of them, but many of them. And interestingly, even people he hurt, some of them still seemed to care about him, which I liked about him. It made me more drawn and fascinated by this man and his contradictions, because he did such amazingly good things, but he also did very harmful things, and that made him a compelling character. So he was certainly among the very first and among the last. He was also the last person I interviewed. We shot during COVID in November when I wrapped The White Tiger, November of 2020. And then we went back in April and shot again. There were some characters that I heard about in the first round of interviews that I wanted to meet. One of whom appears in the very end of the film as a very kind of surprise in the end of the film, and a very amazing man. And some people I just wanted to talk to again, honestly, to get more follow-up questions,
Mm-hmm. Right. I mean, do you think there are ways in which your experience as a narrative filmmaker informed the way you wanted to tell this story?
Yeah, in a way, it did. As I said earlier, a lot of my fiction films are based on heavy research, so that aspect, I think, helped me with the doc. I like talking to strangers. I like getting their stories out of them. I like hearing about their life. And I do that with subjects that I meet when I'm researching a fiction film. So that part I felt very comfortable with. And I think the storytelling, how to weave the story together. Yeah, certainly writing and directing fiction films helped. And also, as I said, working with a great editor like Aaron Wickenden was a real blessing. This guy's just a phenomenal editor.
Mm-hmm. Right. So were there times when you were sitting there with Richard and you found yourself thinking, I don't know if he's, if this is true, or I don't know if he's telling us the whole story here?
Yeah, there were, and there are moments where I pressed him a few times to try to get him to reveal something that factually I knew was true. I had seen documents, but he wouldn't go there. That's the part that I find also very interesting in the film, is the deception or self-deception, the miasma of untruth that is not just around Richard, but I feel we see in our country as well. That can be disturbing and frightening, and people's desire to believe in that mythology or to believe in the untruth, even even Aaron Westrick, the police officer, when there's some, I don't want to give all the things away in the movie, but something is revealed in the middle of the film that is, we realize, my God, Richard made this whole thing up that is quite important to his character, who he is as a person. And still, yet, even then, the police officer, Aaron Westrick, says he wants to believe in the myth, the legend. He says that, and I found that so true to human beings. We all like to believe in the myth and the legend. And as a fiction storyteller, it reminded me, of course, of John Ford's film, The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance, which I love so much, and about printing the legend, and about how often, in many ways, the country was founded on these mythologies that were not really true, or they were partially true, or they were twisted and turned in a way that we digest them and accept them as true.
Yeah. Yeah, and it certainly feels like we're in an era right now where a lot of that is, who has claim on the truth, and
Yes.
So was that something that was, were you thinking of this as a timely film as you were making it?
Yeah, it did occur to us, of course, as we were shooting the film, that a man perpetually shooting himself in the chest reminded me of the country itself. And the distortion of the truth, and people's inability to even understand what is true. Yes, I would say on both sides of the political party, I don't think it's the film doesn't draw an easy conclusion like that. And I'm glad it doesn't, because this distortion of the truth, or this inability to even know what is true, we're seeing it in so many political, social, business, entertainment arenas that it's hard to even know what to do.
Yeah. I feel like, in a way, it also touches on this idea, the militarization of the police has been something that's been a real issue of discussion in recent years.
Yeah, totally. That into that in the film as well, because the body armor kept getting stronger and stronger, and so bullet makers would make more and more deadly bullets in order to penetrate the more impressive body armor, and this just keeps escalating to. You see it in the film. There's a montage where you see what a police officer looked like in 1970 and what they look like today, and it's a pretty frightening difference.
Mm-hmm. Right. I noticed in the end credit, or the opening credits of the film, I think your name is listed, and then the composer right away. And it is a wonderful job of music. I mean, do you find that the music was very important to this?
Yeah, I had a great crew, other than Aaron, who I mentioned as the editor. Adam Stone is a phenomenal cinematographer who shot Wild Wild Country and shoots a lot for Jeff Nichols on the fiction side. And Adam had shot a short doc for me, and he just really brought an incredible cinematic lens to the film. And we used some really banged up, these great anamorphic lenses that added something very special to the film. And then Todd Griffin was a phenomenal composer. And his score, I think, really elevated and deepened the film and gave it a very kind of not just moody, but very interior world, and a very kind of mythological world, which went with kind of the first thing that Richard talks about, this arms race that has been going on for hundreds of thousands of years. And I loved that sequence, and Richard's way of talking was very, very profound in that moment.
Yeah. So do you see yourself from this point forward moving between fiction and nonfiction in your films?
It's always been something I wanted to do. A lot of the directors I admire and have come to know and spend time with, like Werner Herzog or Anya Svarda before she passed. Even Scorsese, they're moving between the two, and I hope to keep doing that in my career. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, congratulations on this film. It's just fascinating, and thanks for joining us.
Thanks so much.